Okay, moving right along. Do we have any agenda updates, Mr. Cole?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have two. I'd like to request that the board remove tab 48 from the agenda, and that we'll bring that back at another time. And we added, after the agenda was originally published, we added tab 51 as an amendment to our agreement with City of Apopka under the consent agenda for public safety.
Very good. Any objections? So noted. All right. At this time, each of us was provided with some minutes under tab 1. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right, this is the part of our meeting where we open it up to citizens' questions and comment. I have cards here. You may speak on any items on the agenda, items not on the agenda, but a number of the cards that I have are items that are on the agenda. So I'll just, unless you want to just speak first and can't wait for the public hearing, then I'll wait at that time to address those, okay? The first card I have is Scott Ailes.
Morning, Chairman and Commissioners, staff. We appreciate the opportunity to represent several hundred residents of Lake County, 71 of which I'll provide a clerk or someone that are specific petitions. I'll hand that in just a minute. Oh, great. Thank you so much. We do appreciate the opportunity to be heard. I want to call attention. I'll be brief, try to stay within my 3 minutes. I've been reading this pretty incredible book, 50 Feet in Paradise. It's a story of Florida that goes back about 200 years. And not surprisingly, it's all about the boom-bust cycles that have occurred ever since. There's an effort within the pretty special place in Lake County of the Crooked Lake areas that has been dear to many people's hearts for at least 40 years that I know by talking to people that still are in and around there. And many of those folks are represented here today. Unfortunately, because of the time, it's difficult for everyone to be here that would like to. We have an application that has been submitted to the City of Eustis for development on a parcel on East Crooked Lake. And there's a request to increase the R1 zoning in the county from 1 unit to the acre to 5 units to the acre. So we were concerned about that increase and didn't feel it was in keeping with our land development regulations and our comprehensive plan, and as such hired an attorney to help us with the technicalities of such, because we're just not that great at it. So we've expended and raised thousands of dollars and shared that information with the county staff, and they've been very happily for us that they've been able to review those documents and offer some correspondence to our folks, and we appreciate that. And Commissioner Campione has presented a letter that you may or may not be aware of to the City Commission that was discussed, presented, but it wasn't read into the record when the project was read on its first reading. So the result of the situation currently is last Thursday night, the City Commission decided to delay the process. The first reading was delayed for the concept of a couple weeks to get an opinion from the Attorney General. So we are here this morning simply to present ourselves as Lake County residents and concerned citizens and trying to preserve this very, very special place. And there are just a couple parcels left, and all we desire and seek are that the laws and the comprehensive plan, the land development regulations, and your laws are carried out, whichever entity the developer or owner should choose to use to move forward. We do not believe that 5 units to the acre is compatible with anything that's in and around the lake, and there are some folks specifically from a development that you could classify as ground zero that certainly are very concerned that their lives are about to change, and the decisions that they made when they bought their properties, understanding the laws and regulations that are in place, would always be applied. So we're merely appealing to you for consideration to review and understand that, and to the extent that you think it's appropriate, we would welcome any input in regards to the situation as it pertains to your relationship and the joint planning agreement that's been in place since 1987 with Eustis. So I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Scott.
Well,
You want to weigh in?
well, if I could first ask a question of the county attorney on the attorney general opinion request that Eustis is pursuing. If the opinion were to come back and it be contrary to the resident's position, that's merely an opinion, correct?
It is merely an opinion. It is persuasive law, so that if you were to challenge the annexation and they were to present that to a judge could certainly take that into consideration as being in favor of the city.
But the judge could also take into consideration other case law that perhaps the attorney general interpreted one way, but the judge might see differently.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because I'm not sure of the timing. Our comprehensive plan actually says that we are required to weigh in if we get an annexation ordinance, because they all come to us once they've been adopted by cities, and then they're usually, I think, on the clerk's agenda. And typically we don't hear from unincorporated residents that they're unhappy about a particular annexation happening. And so it's a kind of common practice when they come in that we would sign off on them. But our comprehensive plan says that if we're aware of a situation where an enclave is being created, then we do have an obligation actually to object. So that would be the point of entry, and I'm just not sure if we would have to wait until the Attorney General makes her decision, or maybe it'll be after the election and it'll be still her decision. But so would we then, if the city then proceeded and we still felt like it was contrary to Florida statutes, we would weigh in at that point under the comp plan, under our comp plan?
Well, I think you would weigh in at the point that Eustis proceeds with it. We would want to attend the hearing and present our position at that time, just to preserve our rights if we wanted to appeal it to circuit court.
Okay. And it's not just the annexation issue. I mean, it's the comprehensive plan part of it as well, because the property itself is specifically designated by Eustis as one of those areas that's appropriate to remain at 1 unit per 1 acre. And the city's comprehensive plan actually calls out these particular locations around the perimeter of Eustis that are unique. Lake Joanna is one of them as well. And so when they put the joint planning area in place years ago, and also when they adopted their own comprehensive plan, future land use map, they recognized that this specific property is one of those areas that should remain as 1 unit per 1 acre. And so from that standpoint, I mean, it's certainly, if it gets beyond the annexation issue and it comes to the city then making a decision about what to do under its comprehensive plan, I just think it would be in the best interest of all residents, whether they're unincorporated residents or city residents, that we at least attempt to be persuasive to them to consider leaving that intact for the long-term sustainability of the tax base of that entire area, because it only promotes and protects the Eustis's tax base as well. And I see that the mayor has walked in, so so anyway, I just would ask that our board, together, take a position on the annexation pending what happens with the Attorney General. Second of all, at least weigh in on our hope that they would honor the comprehensive plan and its designation as 1-to-1. And it really, truly is a unique location. It's unique from the standpoint of the people on each side of it. It's unique from the standpoint of the effect that it has on the lake. It's unique from the standpoint of the view shed, because anywhere you drive along the lake and you look across there, you see this particular area, and it's really a special place. So.
Okay, very good. Next is Mr. Brian Mitnick. Mr. Mitnick here. Couldn't see you over there.
How many minutes to have? 3?
Yes, sir.
I'm not used to this, but it is a beautiful place, and I grew up on that lake. John Hartsfield's son, Wayne, was a great friend of mine. And my younger brother, Keith, and I grew up skiing on that lake. And always have admired it. And 4 or 5 years ago, went through a tremendous loss with divorce, a lot of real estate going down, and was starting to build my life over. And I'm a big fan of King's Barbecue. I've been eating there since I was 13 years old. And I was heading to King's, and I saw this property was for sale. And I thought, wouldn't it be unbelievable that maybe I could have a small part of allowing other people to enjoy that piece of land. And I got involved in it, and quite frankly, the word kind of on the street was that the developers didn't want to go to Eustis because there was on growth, go to Tavares, go to Mount Dora. I took a very good friend of mine out there that was not interested, and when he saw that, he got very interested in it. I listened to, I guess, an hour and 30 minutes of that neighborhood meeting, which now have been cut off. And there's just a lot of information that flew at that meeting that's just simply not correct. No one's wanted, we've never asked for 5 units an acre on that unit. There was a lot of information. I grew up with Hartsfield, and I looked at, doesn't have an acre. My younger brother's one of the top litigators, Keith Metnick, and he recommended me to see this attorney who turned out to be the city attorney of Eustis, so we couldn't use him. And he lives on the lake, and he's not on an acre. And Mr. Ailes, who's objecting to it, he's not on an acre. And then they had this attorney, and I've had dinner with my brother, who's a great litigator, and I'm not an attorney, but I've watched him give a position for 15 minutes and then turn around and then give the total opposite, and both of them were very, very, very compelling. I don't think that it's fair that you would allow a restriction. I would ask, if we had that opportunity, if there's 30, if there's 70, that they would all stand. And I'd like the ones to sit that do not have an acre. And I got a feeling it'd be a very, very small minority that we're still standing. The other thing is we didn't even know about this. Someone called myself at 5 o'clock yesterday. We did not know there was any type of thing, that there would be anything done. You know, there was a lot of talk in that meeting about the Bible, and I'm actually a student of the Bible, and there's a scripture I love. It says the first one seems right in a case till the second one speaks. And I want the opportunity, even if it's just one, to speak. The other is that for the first time in my life, I thought about coming. I left Eustis, went to Florida. I've been in Orlando ever since. It's the first time that I've personally thought about coming back. I thought if I could get a place over there with this new extension, I'm shocked at how fast. And what was good for those group of people is now not good for new people like myself coming in, and I'm from this county. Another thing that I want to comment is that I found it very interesting that Mr. Ailes, if we were meeting on a different basis, I think we'd like one another. He seems like a very fair, nice guy. But, you know, he evidently, I understand, has made money selling cars on the internet. He's had a Duesenberg. I asked about him, and I thought, why shouldn't you sell me that Duesenberg at the same amount of what you paid for it? Why should you put it on the, and get highest and best use if you're not allowing a landowner to get highest and best use on his property? That property was on the market for over a year before I got involved in it at $2.8 million. And if everybody wanted to make it into a park, why didn't the 70 people get together and just buy that piece? And I guess that's it. And we're gonna, I just don't think it's fair that is, there was also talk in that meeting that they hadn't been able to raise the policemen for years. And my suggestion, is if they continue to do that, it's amazing to me that when I met in downtown Eustis, I was born in Waterman, it doesn't look like it's changed much. I come over here, I got here early, Freddie Belton's a lifelong friend of mine, and this Tavares has grown, Mount Doris have grown. And I suggest, whether they turn it down or not, they are hurting Eustis and Lake County. They're not going to stop growth. And I had a lot of developers that did want 5 to an acre. That's not what these guys' heart is. The first thing was the point was going to be preserved. That meeting, they talked about inclusion and some statue they wanted to put up in Willis McCall. And that was way, way behind, and we shouldn't do that because it was inclusive. And I believe that if this is held up, the same thing is stopping someone like me from enjoying what they enjoyed. Someone developed their land, someone built their land. And why shouldn't I have that same opportunity and other people to do it? Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make it clear to the mayor too and welcome you to our meeting, but we did not bring this up on our agenda, and it's not an agenda item, and it's not an item that we could even vote on today. It was brought up under public comment, and we were simply having a discussion about it. And my request would be that we would bring it back up. And I do think that, I mean, there's a lot of nuance to this. It's not just, Eustis has a land use designation. They have 2 choices. One is the SR, which goes up to 5 units the acre. The other is the rural residential, I believe, which is the 1-to-1. And so there's a lot of room in between that 5 to 1 to 1-to-1, where depending on how and who ultimately develops it, it could be quite different than the people that live immediately adjacent, which are in fact pretty large lots, the ones that are in the terrace there. So it's another discussion for another day as far as what this board would actually do. We can't do anything today. And again, this discussion is in reaction to us being asked to consider the position of the unincorporated residents that feel that they would be detrimentally affected if it did in fact go up to 5 units to the acre. So.
Thank you. And this is public comment. We will not take any action on this because this is not an agenda item. So, but Mr. Mayor, if you would like to speak to this item, because you came in late, not that I was going to mention that, but you didn't fill out a card, so that's all right.
I was forced everybody at Eustis.
Elected official privilege. So.
Well, I found out about 8:20 this morning this was going on, so it's very difficult for us to come out here, and I'm so totally unprepared. I was on my way to a homeless and hunger meeting at 9 o'clock, and I missed that for this meeting. So I just want to let you know, we are not unreasonable. If you look at the video of our meeting, and any of you that were there, you realize we're not going to do anything that's not good for the city of Eustis and also good for those residents. Unfortunately, the city of Eustis has always been, and I hate to use this term, I won't even use it. We're always sort of the committee that the community that nobody knows about. Do you realize on 429, there's no sign that says you're coming to Eustis. There's nothing there. It's Mount Dora, Tavares, all those other cities, but not us. The unfortunate thing here is that we, as a city commission, actually got involved in that discussion, and it was extremely technical, extremely legal, and we decided that we would put it off and have an assistant, the Attorney General's opinion to help us make those decisions. We're never going to make a decision that's going to impede or make people irritated with us, but we're also going to make a decision for the city. As the mayor, I am not the least bit interested in your tax dollars. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to build the base of our city so that the city of Eustis has a larger perspective, has all types of families living within its city. If there's a tax base that is included in that, that's fine. But that's not what the city's after. If you look at the video, take a look at the way all the 4 commissioners, I believe, were there. I'm not sure if our Commissioner Thompson was there at the end. But those are the important things to realize. We did have questions. So presupposing or some sort of a preemptive strike by the county commission would not be effective for us. Let us make those decisions. Let us go through the process and determine what is best for those residents around the lake. A lot of issues, and also what happens to the city of Eustis, the current residents. We've had a lot of tough fights in the city of Eustis. There was a tremendous development that was going to happen over in the old Sharps Park area that fell apart. We don't have a lot of commitment from folks to help us out to get through those processes. It would have been great for the city of Eustis and great for those residents, but there's nobody helping out those residents except for myself, trying to find out what could we do if they were to be evicted. Nobody helped out. So we finally made a decision I would and go find out. So we did do some interviews. So we as a city have lost a lot of opportunities. This is not one of those that I'm looking for that will increase our tax rate, our tax base, and make us so affluent. It's a matter of bringing families in here that will mix with our families and become a better city. So I'm hoping that the next time this comes up, that I hear about it, and I would love to be able to make additional comments, but we're waiting now for the Attorney General's opinion and see whether or not we have contiguity and all those other issues. So thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you. And just to reflect, this was not an agenda item. This was brought up during citizens' comment, so
I understand.
we don't have any control.
I understand, but it's I guess it's something I didn't know about. I found out at 8:20 this morning, so it's important to be here.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's important at this moment, and I've got to do this at the beginning. If you are here, reference FLU 18-12-4, which is a subdivision under the planning and zoning for a Charlie Johnson application. That application has been withdrawn from consideration at this time under our rules. So if you're here for that, that's been withdrawn, and we won't be hearing any information on that today.
That's the one that's on Estes Road.
Right. Okay. All right.
So, Mayor, so you don't feel targeted, that development is not the only one we've heard a lot of comments on.
Okay.
And I'm just asking that it be put on the agenda at an upcoming meeting. We would certainly notice the city, as well as the residents who have contacted us about the issue, so that everybody would know that we're actually discussing it and taking action one way or the other. And, understanding that ultimately the city may be the entity that's making the decision, and, just hoping that, the city utilizes land use tools that are available to make sure that consistency is adhered to and that property owners are in fact protected, and there's ways to do that, and I think that we can all work together to see that through.
I agree with you. It is a reasonable, and I think what we should do is wait until we hear from what the options are for the city of Eustis, that's all, and whether or not there's legal status for us. I'm not looking for somebody to do it ahead of time. Let us do that. And all of you know me. You know I'm not an unreasonable person. So please think about that. And I'm still mayor, so we'll get through this. But I would prefer that people wait until we get a result from the Attorney General's office, see where we go from there. So,
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving right along. The other cards I have are in reference to things that are on the planning and zoning agenda, so we'll cover them at that time. Next, we have two proclamations to present. I would ask the commission to approve tab